All right, well, it is time to discuss this week in WWE. Certainly no shortage of news coming out this week with the massive releases and all the storylines leading to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which is just 2 weeks away now. So Mimi, Burris, and myself are going to get everything going right now.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
All right, everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast. It's the Week in Review. It's our flagship show for the week. Mimi Burris joins me tonight to talk about everything that's going on. I think we talked about just about everything. We left very few things off the table and fantasy booked out, but also talked about, of course, the releases that happened, the massive releases where each of those individuals could land. Mimi was a little bit more intelligent in her responses than I was because she pays attention to AEW a little bit more than I do. And NXT for that matter, which is why we have her as part of the team, right? She makes me look good because she certainly knows her stuff, and so that's my dirty little secret. She's really the brains behind the operation. I'm just a pretty face, right? So, but nonetheless, it was great to catch up with her. It's been too long since I've done a show with her, and you can hear from my voice as I record this that we talked for quite a while, 2 hours. We had a very, very, very fun discussion, kind of negative. And you know what? We mentioned that throughout the show that we didn't mean to be negative regarding the product, but we call it like it is. And, you know, right now, Raw sucks. SmackDown is generally good. And we are, we're very honest. So we're going to get into that discussion and dive in a little bit further. But first, as we always like to welcome new patrons, I do want to welcome the latest patron of the show, Sean Bryant, who has recently joined. So, Sean, thank you for becoming a patron, and you can do the same if you're listening and get our What If show, which is dropping tomorrow, a little bit late, but the What If show with Anthony DeMarco and myself, we're going to be dropping tomorrow on the Patreon page, and it's going to cover what if Eddie Guerrero didn't pass away in 2005, what his career would have looked like, how long he would have lasted in the ring, who his future opponents could have been, and so forth. So that's going to be a really fun one with Anthony. We're recording it tomorrow morning, be available in the afternoon on Patreon. So if you're interested in that, head on over there. And if you're in the Raw tier or higher, you get access to that show. But if not, if you just join the NXT tier, which is our $1 tier, you do get access to Wrestling Nostalgia, which is available only on Patreon, along with ad-free everything. I mean, everything is ad-free, along with shout-outs that you just heard here, and a bunch of other great stuff, including a Discord server that is only accessible to those on Patreon that we use as our little private VIP area during pay-per-views to chat about in real time what's going on and give our thoughts and opinions. It's really fun. We only did it for the first time this past pay-per-view, and I hope that more of you will join on the Discord server. So if you want to, Patreon's a great place to do it. I'll be sending out the link as a reminder to everybody there in the coming week. So, alrighty, everybody. So this is about the time where I bow out, and I'm going to let Mimi and myself kind of push you into the next segment here for everything this week in WWE. I will be back Tuesday night with your Monday Night Raw review and maybe a guest for Tuesday night. So stay tuned for that, a co-host that I'm sure you're familiar with. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. Please give us a 5-star rating if you can on Apple Podcasts, and I appreciate that. Everybody, take care. As always, I'll talk to you next time. All right, and welcome to the Week in Review, and it's been a long time. It's been too damn long since I've had Mimi Burris back on the show with me, and it feels like a long-lost friend and I have reunited because we not only get to talk about wrestling, but boy, oh boy, are we timing this very, very well with all of the massive news coming out of WWE. of the releases, and as we head closer to Hell in a Cell, what these releases could really mean. And first, welcome, Mimi. How's everything going? You guys know her, obviously, from the highs and lows of the week and the AEW Dynamite review. So how you doing?
I'm good. I'm still employed with my job, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that is true. You didn't get future endeavored this week, I hope.
No.
That's good. That's good. And that would mean, though, that if you're a WWE employee, you've got, I mean, I got to say, we all know that working for any company, if you get lackadaisical and you start to get complacent in your job, you think you're indispensable. The fact is you're not indispensable. Nearly everyone is dispensable in their jobs. I understand that logic. And creating a fire under somebody's butt and making sure that they're doing their job and that they are motivated and they're working to the best of their ability. But if I'm in WWE, I'm working just out of fear of keeping my job. I've also now, if I'm in WWE and I'm a talent, thought to myself, wow, well, I have these ideas for my creative, this is where I want to suggest I go. And now I don't know if I want to say anything because I might be the next one on the chopping block. I think it's going to stunt creative growth from the actual talent themselves for going out on a limb. I think it drops morale. I think that it also is just not good for PR in general for the company. And headlining is Braun Strowman, of course, at the top of the class, not a class that you want to be at the top of, and being released. Obviously, Aleister Black and others. So, Mimi, I know that you've shared this a little bit on your show, but what are your overall thoughts of what the hell went on this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things to get into, and I don't want to jump the gun on anything, like we said, as to what this might lead to or anything along those lines. But I think that it's sad when anybody loses their job. I think some releases are a little bit more quote unquote surprising than others, but at the same time, I also think, I read a headline this week that said that, the reason why Aleister Black, this is all obviously budget cuts, right? So, we can make more money for shareholders and all that stuff. It's just like every penny matters. But I read some headline that said the real reason why Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy got released was because Vince didn't get their style of wrestling. And I'm laughing. I'm like, what's not to get? Entertaining wrestling. Two of the most talented wrestlers in the world. I mean, you have a guy who's getting comparisons to the Kenny Omega, and then you have probably one of the best strikers ever in Aleister Black. So those two were the biggest hits for me, but the whole thing is sad. I don't know if you want to go through one by one. I also wanted to ask you where you think some of these guys and gals might end up.
Yeah, I think that what's going to happen, I do think some of them land in AEW. I mean, I think that is, to me, that is where most people think as released WWE talent will go. I don't think it's automatically a slam dunk for all talent that's released by WWE to go to AEW. I'm glad there's a second option, though. I'm glad there's a second option for these men and women that can go to another place, at least have the option to maybe go to another place that will pay them as well, or even in some cases higher pay in AEW with Tony Khan. Certainly has deep pockets, we know that, but not everyone's going to fit that style. They only have so many spots on the roster. They don't have a 3-hour show, right? Like, it is not as open as some may think it is. So I do believe some will end up there. Do I think Braun Strowman's going to lead up there? Probably at some point, yes. Given his star power, I think he probably will. Obviously under a different name. But I don't think everyone does. I think certainly Buddy Murphy does. Buddy Murphy is probably going to end up there. I think Ruby Riott ends up there. I think that Aleister Black, I think Aleister Black could too. Honestly, I could see all of them. They all have a spot in that roster. Ruby Riott, I don't think she's at the top of the women's division in WWE. She showed some talent, but in terms of where she was in the pecking order of WWE talent on the women's side, she wasn't in the, top 3, but perhaps she can show a different side of her in AEW. I think actually, oddly, even though Braun Strowman's the biggest name, I think he fits the least in AEW in terms of how they present wrestling. And again, you cover this much more detailed than I do, but I think his star power will get them there. I don't think they'll want him because he's so good in the ring. and he's great on promos. I think it's just he's got a good size and he's got name value. That's probably what they look at as his biggest asset. And he does. But what do you think? Do you think all, some, none end up in AEW?
Yeah, it's funny you said. I heard something also about the Vince McMahon. You just reminded me that said one of the reasons, again, take all this with a grain of salt, and I don't remember what the sources were. I think it was Dave Meltzer. It probably was Dave Meltzer. But one of the reasons why Braun Strowman got released too was because Vince already had enough big guys. You know, they have what's his name, Commander Aziz, and the one who's with what's his name, Omos. Yeah. But the one who's with. I'm totally blanking on his name. The Colossus is his finisher.
The Colossus. Oh, Jinder Mahal?
Yes, but the guy who's with him, it's like Scrappy or something.
Oh, gosh. Well, they only showed him. I haven't seen Jinder in like a month. Like, right?
Yeah, but essentially
yes,
that
I know who
they
you're talking
had
about.
enough big guys and they were, apparently. But so just to give you, I guess, a little information on where I guess AEW's at, maybe a little bit more perspective and all this stuff. It sounds like, first of all, they are going to have a show on Friday nights that is actually airing after SmackDown on TNT, I think, called Rampage, and I could be wrong about that, but it's going to be like an hour, 2-hour show, I think. You know, they have a couple other shows, Dark and Dark Elevation, that are YouTube only, and they're kind of just they're like a substitute for house shows, is the way I look at it now, for people to get their reps. Mm-hmm. So that's 4 shows technically, right? That's a lot of content, and they already have a stacked roster. I don't know if you saw Andrade debuted on Friday night.
Yes. Yep.
That was super exciting. It was kind of ho hum. But so I think Braun Strowman stays with WWE. I think he comes back in about 2 years once McMahon kind of wakes up on one side of the bed and changes his mind. I think, with signing Mark Henry and the Big Show, and they've already got guys like Miro and Lance Archer, I don't think, AEW is not your typical big man's company. So I don't know if, and I think Braun Strowman is kind of a loyalist. From what I know, he's not like a wrestler. He's more like a WWE superstar, not an indie guy or anything like that. Who knows? I think he could go into acting, is what I said on my show. I just think, he could probably get a job from his size alone. Aleister Black, I think, goes to New Japan or AEW. I think he wrestled in New Japan before. His name was Tommy End or something like. I could be wrong about that, but again, I'm not so familiar with this indie stuff. I just know very vaguely. I think Lana ends up going back to making all that money she was making before the whole third-party deal took place, which seems like even more money than she was probably making with the company. I don't think she continues in wrestling. I could be wrong, but she just was not her thing. I think Murphy goes to New Japan too, and then kind of makes more of a name for himself. And then maybe I selfishly would love to see Murphy in AEW. I just don't think it's a fit right now. I think they've got a million guys who can wrestle like Murphy. As great of a look as he has, and they've already got, I told you they have comparisons to Kenny Omega. They already have a Kenny Omega, so we'll see. Ruby Riott, I think wrestled in Impact, if I'm correct. Heidi Lovelace,
yes,
was her name. And so I think she goes to AEW because, that women's roster could definitely use it. I think she's way more talented than we've seen in the last couple of years. I think she probably just stopped caring after a while, maybe. Because if you go back a couple of years, remember Ronda Rousey and her had a pay-per-view match? And that Evolution pay-per-view she was on, it was great. So I think she goes back to being something, Heidi Lovelace, something along those lines. And if it's not AEW, it's definitely Impact. And honestly, I don't know enough about Santana Garrett. All I know is that she wrestled on NXT a little while. That shows you, right? But and was called up to the main roster and then just never got to debut. So I would have said that most of these guys and gals wouldn't be going to AEW maybe, Thursday. But after watching Andrade go to AEW, okay, now they've kind of got me hooked on that because I just figured the roster was so big already, you couldn't really sign anyone else. But if someone's a big name, you'll sign them,
Which
and
is
sounds like
with Braun Strowman,
it sounds like he's going to have a lot of creative control in AEW, like he's got a veto power or something along those lines as to whether or not he loses a match and things like. It sounds like he really knows his worth, which is super exciting and awesome for him. I'm happy he finally found a place that treats him like that. So talented.
So your thought is, and I didn't even think of that, with Braun Strowman, you think he doubles back and goes back to WWE and doesn't do anything for the time being in wrestling and just eventually just lands back in WWE?
Yeah, he probably goes and acts or something and makes a bigger name for himself, I think, or what is perceived as such. I just can't, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't picture him anywhere else. I think from what I've seen too, he won't even hear any offers from any other companies. He's like a WWE loyalist, so it's kind of like he'll get screwed over and come back in. It's sad to think about, but I mean, how many other people have we seen do things like that too, get released? Mickey James got released, came back.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great interview with her actually. She's, was sad to hear, but just at where she seems fine and obviously where she's at, making country music and all this stuff. But I remember being 10, 12 years old, and the one women's wrestler that I actually really enjoyed at the time, this is like pre-AJ Lee, this is pre-Divas era too, was Mickey James. So sad, but obviously her name is not on this particular list, but is on the name of like 27 other wrestlers that got released this year.
And yeah, you think about Mickey James. I know she's not on the list, as you said, this past week, but yeah, her match with Trish Stratus was a WrestleMania 20. Oh gosh, when she did the infamous hand gesture, and that they actually edited out of the WrestleMania that particular matchup. But I think that Braun Strowman, the guy who's leading this class, I think that number one, he's the biggest shock, and it's weird because he is a guy that Vince McMahon would look at and go, that's the guy, right? He's big. He draws attention. He does have charisma. He's got the Vince McMahon look, and you're looking around and you're thinking, what the hell is Vince McMahon thinking these days? Because you have a guy that was just on a main event of a pay-per-view a few weeks ago. He won the Universal Championship last WrestleMania. What is going on? Braun Strowman is the perfect example of, you can't be safe. You can't feel safe in WWE right now. I wouldn't want to be in a place that I'm always looking over my shoulder, waiting for that call from head of talent relations with hey, thanks for all your services, but we're moving on. I mean, I would be so stressed out. And so I guess the question to you is, I'll let you take this because I think we have the same answer. What is all of this leading to? What is the purpose of cleaning house right now? I'll let you take it. Go ahead.
What I've heard, and I don't know if I agree with it, and I assume you're on the same pages. I've heard, unless we're totally on different pages, and this is just going to be weird, but I think that there, there's been talks of that they're possibly selling the company, which is kind of funny to think about because I always thought that either Bruce Pritchard would take it or Triple H, and there was kind of a whole, there's a conspiracy theory about the inner battle between those two guys, but. I guess my thoughts on that before I throw it to you is I just can't. It's like there's so many reasons why that looks valid, right? Like I could give you like a whole list of bullet points as to reasons why it looks like WWE is gonna, they're gonna sell the company to whoever. And then the other side of the list is just like a bullet point that says Vince McMahon, and the two equal out. Just like you can't imagine that company, even still where it's at today. I can't imagine that company not having a McMahon run it. I don't know. Maybe that's just muscle memory at this point. But I also think, who would they sell it to? Maybe Disney is my best guess, but you can't really sell it to NBC because your best show right now is on Fox. So I don't know. I also think the other option or the other idea too is you've got that guy Nick Khan, obviously, who's newer in the company, and is probably just like I'm trying to think of the only comparison I can think of is The Office, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So just the guy who comes in, cleans house a little bit, and then does his job for a year or two, and then leaves the company. Like his job is just to come in, or Parks and Rec. Have you ever seen Parks and Rec?
Oh God, yeah, every episode.
He did those. What's their name? The two guys, the one who ends up marrying and the blonde one. I can't remember their names.
Oh gosh, well.
And the really really happy guy. The auditors, the tax guys, they come in and like basically make cuts of all this other stuff, and then they're supposed to leave. Like I feel like that's what Nick Khan is doing. Because if you think about it, this was not happening before that. I mean, obviously talent was getting released, but not to this extent. So those are my thoughts. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I just can't. I think if they sell it, they sell it to Disney is my best guess. But then you just have this Peacock deal. So how does that work?
There is the Peacock deal. I mean, obviously just happened, but. So they got their money, right? WWE got their money. They got their $1 billion, and I thought, I was like, oh, okay, great. Stocks went up from that. The stock price did that is. Walt Disney is the one that I've heard. That is the one that is most probable. I mean, there's other media entities out there that may be interested. Again, there's nothing confirmed. This is all speculation. But when you dump a contract the size of Braun Strowman's, who was reportedly making over $1 million a year, plus merchandise royalties, one has to wonder, that they are cleaning up their books, they're cleaning up their accounting in preparation for a deal. That is the telltale sign, and also given the fact that Braun Strowman, he's an asset to the company. I mean, we could sit here and belittle the choo-choo train noises and the whole Braun storyline. Like we could tear apart the creative for him, and he has had some bad creative over the years. And when you look back at his career, the guy has never really had one great opponent. He's done a lot of stunts with guys from SNL. A 10-year-old he won the tag team titles with. He was lucked and really, he tripped into the Universal Championship match at last year's WrestleMania because of COVID and Roman Reigns stepping away. I mean, the guy has had some really strange matchups. Again, who was that boxer that came in just last year? I can't remember his name.
Fury.
Yes.
Tyson Fury, right?
Yeah, Tyson Fury. He does all these like specialty attraction things. He doesn't ever really have a great opponent. He just does these entertainment-y things. So, but at the same time, there's a place for that. And WWE loves that kind of stuff. And when you dump a guy like Strowman, there was no signs, pointing to that. There was nothing that anyone said like, oh man, yeah, we haven't heard or seen him in a while. Look out. Where Aleister Black was a surprise, but at the same time, you were like, well, they haven't really done anything with him other than these last few vignettes, and he, black masked Big E, but that's it. Usually when somebody's about to get tanked, you don't see them for quite a while. All of a sudden, you just see they've been future endeavored, and like, yeah, well, we haven't seen him in 2 months. That makes sense. But Braun Strowman, man, and that's a huge contract that they just dumped. So, I mean, I don't want Walt Disney to absorb WWE. I really actually don't. I don't know how they would manage the company. I know Vince McMahon is out of touch at this point, but man, I don't want Mickey Mouse being the Raw, GM of Raw. Like I don't. I mean, it's cartoony enough at times, but do you really think this could happen?
Do you really think Mickey Mouse would be that much worse than Grumpy Cat?
It's true.
Do you remember that? Like that was years after Grumpy Cat was even a thing.
Oh my God, yes. I forgot about that.
No, I guess my thoughts are, and I'm more speaking about Raw when I say this, because obviously all the shows have their own issues, but not 3 hours straight of issues. I think how much worse could it really get? Not to be that person, but how much worse could it really get I also think. You think this guy's going to sell? Do you think Vince McMahon sells the company? If let's say that's the plan, right? Do you think he sells it before he's going to retire, or do you think he sells it? Which, by the way, I think will be when rest in peace, Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. When that happens, I think that's probably when But do you think he does it before then, or around that time, or do you think he still works for the company if he sells it? I just can't see that man working for anybody ever.
Well, he already essentially is working for his sponsors. I mean, that's how they drive a lot of their creative, and they're very careful with what storylines they present, and oftentimes they're writing for their sponsors and their stakeholders and shareholders rather than the general viewing audience. I think we come second. So he's essentially already working for somebody now anyway, and that's the people dumping money in his pockets. So yeah, he would kind of have an overlord of a boss with NBC Universal. I mean, we obviously the owners of Disney, but I don't know what the relationship would look like with Vince and the executives over at Walt Disney. Perhaps they do kind of come to some agreement where, yeah, we did buy you, but you're still running the company. You're still in charge of everything. You don't have to run everything creatively by us. I don't know enough about the inner workings of Disney to really speak on that. So perhaps he sells it, still makes a ton of money off the sale, but yet is running it behind the scenes just as he always was. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all super interesting. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be versed in any kind of business stuff either. I don't know either. All I know is that I don't just how much more money do you really need to be like
I know.
record profits during a pandemic? Like that's another thing just to point out too. I feel like it's interesting to talk about all this stuff, but like at the same time, a lot of the times I feel like these people just become, people on a like almost TV characters to us. These are real live human beings, right? Who now were making, 1 point whatever $1 million a year, and now they're not making any money at the moment, and obviously with them being independent contractors where it's beneficial to the company, and then employees essentially where it's beneficial to the company. So they can't wrestle anywhere else, but they also have to pay for their own health care.
Travel.
How much money could they really be saving? Like all these thoughts, just like and we're still in a pandemic. I know we're obviously rolling out the vaccines like nobody's business, but like it's still a pandemic and you're still releasing talent during a pandemic. And not to mention, like, you release all this talent the minute, like, the indie circuit is, at its worst. And, yeah, there's AEW, but, like, New Japan has been probably at its worst right now, too, from what I've heard. Impact has the same, 200,000 people who watch the show every week. Like, hoard all the talent, and then, the pandemic is almost like a blessing in their cynical minds where, oh, now we can release all this talent. We don't have to worry about them being competition. Maybe I'm looking at it as a really cynical view, but I don't put anything past the company at this point. Sad.
Yeah, it is. And, I think that we'll learn more in the coming months. Some people have speculated that this can happen a lot sooner than people think. And I don't know. It would be, you talk about media headlines. I mean, for WWE to be sold, the internet would explode. I mean, the wrestling community would go insane. And what does this mean? What kind of content are we going to get? What is, who's going to head it up? But like you said, like money wise, I've looked at their financials. They aren't doing bad. And a lot of it has unfortunately come at the expense of releasing a lot of talent. And I understand, just like any company, they've had to deal with the financial hardships of the COVID era, the pandemic era. They call it the Thunderdome. It's the pandemic era. It is certainly, it's tough. And I get that. But they just made $1 billion deal over 5 years with the Peacock purchase of the WWE Network. And, they've released a lot of their money because of dropping talent and dropping not just talent, but behind the scenes staff, people that set up the ring, travel agents. And yes, they'll have to bring some of those people back on as the travel starts to ramp up again after a year and a half, starting in mid-July. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like they are, at least in the public perception, that they are so focused on money, and they look like a money-hungry, like for-profit organization. And yes, like they are for-profit, but you don't want to look like you're so enamored with the dollar that you forget about the humanity part of it. And it looks like a lot of this is just the hell with people. We're releasing, I mean, I'd love to know the amount of people that they've released between April of 2020 and now. I mean, somebody has to compile a number. It's got to be 100 plus, 150 people. I feel like it's so many people they've released. But it looks, they just do not have a good like PR perspective right now, or at least the optics are terrible for WWE, and the ratings are at an all-time low, particularly for Monday Night Raw. So any final thoughts? Again, we're all speculating on this. This may not happen. We could be talking about this for no reason, but I think it's something worth discussing. But any final thoughts on this before we get to the actual content of the product?
No, I'm glad you mentioned the people backstage too, because I also wanted to say that that's, obviously we don't know them as well, but just because we don't know them as well doesn't mean they're any less important, obviously. But so I'm just glad you mentioned that. No, I'm ready to get in the sandbox because all of this is really depressing. I know,
it is. So sorry, guys, but it is at the forefront. And if WWE does sell, I mean, look out. It's going to be an explosion of podcasts from us, and I'm sure from the rest of the wrestling community. But okay, yeah, let's get to the actual stuff that is not as important but much more fun to talk about. Of course, the product. And let's start with something really positive. And it seems like I start out with this topic every single time, but it is so good, at least in my eyes, and Roman Reigns, right? Like Roman Reigns and the Jimmy Uso storyline that is continuing to evolve. I think this has really been the savior, not just for SmackDown, but for WWE as a whole. I think this storyline, and Roman Reigns in particular, has been insurmountably important to not having WWE go completely in the toilet in terms of creative. This has been just, I can't underscore enough, I think, how important this storyline's been to the perception of WWE product. But that's at least my perspective. So what are your take this week on how everything evolved with Jimmy and Jay getting 2 opportunities for the tag team titles, and they end up squandering both, albeit in controversial fashion for both, and then Roman Reigns just dismantling Rey and Dominic to end SmackDown?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The Roman Reigns stuff is the best stuff going on in WWE, and if not, like, a lot of wrestling today. I think he is so amazing at what he's doing. He surpasses any other things on that show. Any show, NXT, Raw, at all. It's like no competition. And I think Jey Uso particularly, or as Roman would call him, Jimmy, I think Jey Uso is probably like the best reactor I've seen in so long. I think that's like a Paul Heyman thing he talks a lot about like reacting, not too much, but also like showing enough emotion. He's so good at I'm worried about Jey Uso's mental health as I'm watching the show, and like that just shows, or that goes to obviously how great of an actor he's been. I will say about the 2 matches in one night, I get the storyline. I think if there weren't 15 false finishes in every show, I wouldn't care as much, or distractions or roll-ups and all that other stuff, DQs and everything else. I think I would be a little bit more forgiving of it, but I don't know, you had the same match twice and you didn't even have a real finish either time. Though I'm all for, maybe this is like the sick part of my brain, but I was all for watching, the Dominic Mysterio beatdown. We haven't seen something like that since Brock Lesnar. During I forget the guy's name, the one who came and is supposedly his like godfather or something. The what's his name? You know what I'm talking about? The bald one. They fought at like Super Showdown or something like that. It was terrible. The UFC fighter.
Oh, Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez, yes. We haven't seen obviously a beatdown like that on the Mysterio since I think the whole Cain Velasquez era with Brock Lesnar just like murdering Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio essentially that one time. So, I'm into it. This is the one thing I'm really kind of invested on WWE. The one thing I'm not so excited for too, and I'll throw it back to you, is it sounds like they're going with Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns in a Hell in a Cell match, kind of like technically or whatever, poetic whatever for last year's Hell in a Cell match. But I don't know about you. I'm just not interested in that. I like what's going on. I don't know. I don't need to see a match between Roman and Jimmy yet. But maybe you feel differently. I think I'm in the minority on that take. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about all that too.
Well, I will say that, I'm not sitting here going, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait until they get in the ring. Jimmy might be able to take the belt from him. Those are not things I'm thinking. I'm looking at this going, this is a necessary step that I'm willing to go through to get the actual bloodline. Hopefully they finally just label themselves as the bloodline, because that's a badass name. Can we just finally say that? I mean, I don't know why we're not even there yet. But I'm understanding of this because I think, number one, the match quality is going to be just fine. Very good. I mean, that's not the problem. It is poetic. We understand what happened last year with Jimmy and getting choked out and the whole crying charade that Roman Reigns put on, which was just damn brilliant. At that point, I said, this guy's going to be effing money as a heel. I mean, that was just so great that he could just create tears on command. So, yes, it's poetic. The match quality is going to be fine. Is it something that people are thinking, oh my God, Jey Uso could actually win the Universal Championship? No, that's not the point. The point is to get him to fall in line, just as Jey Uso did, facing Roman Reigns for a couple of months prior to him finally bowing to the tribal chief. Jimmy's going through the same story, same path, I think, that Jey did, and he will reluctantly finally acknowledge Roman Reigns, and he'll fall in line, and then he'll have backup. I don't want to see Jimmy and Jey defect from Roman, because then it becomes the Usos versus Roman, and to me, that's not the story here. To me, they are perfect backup, perfect heavies for Roman. I think Roman would be an excellent leader of both. He kind of already is, but it's a little muddy right now. So I just think the purpose of it is to get Jimmy to fall in line, to get to Roman's real next opponent, whomever that may be.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you make a good point about that. Not every match obviously has. I mean, we're pretty clear that probably any challenger is not going to be beating Roman Reigns anytime soon. But as long as they do something that's different enough, because again, they're twins, right? So you're already battling up that uphill there, as to not repeating the exact same thing. Though, as obviously we saw on SmackDown, I don't think they really care about that. So, I mean, I don't know. Do they do another I Quit match in the Hell in a Cell? How do they make this a little bit different than last year's? Maybe they don't do that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm with you, though. I think having both Usos against Roman makes Roman almost a de facto babyface, because you've got a 2-on-1 situation. So I don't know. But I will say overall, I'm enjoying obviously everything that Roman Reigns does. It's the one bright spot I feel like in a lot of WWE's programming today, and at least maybe not so much this week, obviously, but it bleeds down into the rest of the show. When the main event is really good and you're interested in that, and it's a story thread throughout the show, I'm more interested in watching the rest of what's going on. I don't know why that works. Maybe again, it's just the story thread that's throughout the 2 hours of SmackDown, but it's such an interesting thing, because I feel like we haven't seen that in forever. We've had a couple good storylines at the top of some programs, but Roman Reigns has been the savior of this whole pandemic era.
There's no question. He is the true Messiah. Sorry, Seth. I mean, he really, really is. And I loved the way, and you quickly brushed on this, how Roman intentionally called Jey Uso Jimmy, and touched on, does it really matter who's who at the end of the day? Because it's so true. At the beginning of their careers, I couldn't tell who was who. No one knew. And I'm sure people did say to them, now, which one are you? And that's just so disrespectful, but understandable given where they were in WWE. They looked the exact same. They dressed the exact same. Now there's really no comparison. I mean, they look similar, but they talk different. They act a little bit different. Of course, Jimmy's got a little bit different look than Jey. They are so distinct now that it's like they were never that team before. And I don't know. It's just such a nice touch and such an a-hole move by Roman Reigns to say that purposefully to Jey Uso. I loved it.
Yeah, I was sitting there like, man, that's what I was saying. I'm worried about his mental health at this point. I'm just thinking, you jerk. I couldn't have picked a worse thing to do in that moment. It's just, I really think he's going to get booed when fans come back. I really think he's doing such a good job of towing that fine line between, heat, but not channel changing heat, but also not cool heel. It's like this very, very thin line nowadays, I feel like, and there's very few people who can do it so well, and I'm not cheering for him. I hate the guy at this point, the character at least.
And we heard it at WrestleMania. Everyone booed him at WrestleMania. Generally, most people booed him, and I was concerned because it's typically the, quote, hardcore audience, a lot of international fans that come there on, and kind of gather for that event. And I was worried that he'd get cheered out of irony that he's doing such a great job, and they're happy that WWE turned him heel. And I was really hopeful, and I tried to send the message to whoever would hear it is, don't do it out of irony. Do it. The best thing that you can do to show respect is boo the guy. I mean, really, that is the best thing that you can do for a heel that's doing a great job and you really hate, is to boo the hell out of him. Those are his cheers, so to speak. So I think you're right. I think he has real heat. I don't believe they'll cheer him because he has sing-along phrases and that he's cool. There's really no redeeming qualities about Roman Reigns. That's what's great. There's nothing to like about him. There really isn't. He's condescending. He's arrogant. He continually tells people that everything revolves around him, and he is just such a total D-bag, and I love it. So there's really nothing to cheer for. He's not the cool heel. He's not like a Bray Wyatt that's billed as a heel, but people cheer for him anyway because he's so cool. No, Roman Reigns is one of those rare heels, so I think you're right. And guys, if you're going to an event and you like this Roman Reigns heel character, the best thing you can do, please boo him. I mean, you can do what you want. It's your own money. But guys, boo him. That's how you'll continue to get the heel Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. And it seems like, I don't know if you watched too, is Double or Nothing was the AEW pay-per-view on Sunday this weekend. And again, 5,500 fans or something like that in attendance. It was such a great feeling. Obviously, with all politics and vaccine and all that stuff aside, just like as a wrestling fan to hear live, they sounded like a full stadium. And they booed the heels for the most part and cheered the faces. Like, I mean, again, probably a much better booked company, and that's, I think, pretty objective, not necessarily subjective, just in general, of clear baby faces and clear heels. And there were two matches for the most part that were not too distinguishable, obviously, but for the most part, you got your deafening boos and deafening cheers, and like, it was so refreshing to think, okay, maybe fans are just appreciative right now to be back live, or maybe it's just great storytelling. Again, I don't know much different than the WWE audience because I've never heard it before. But I'm hoping that the same thing happens when fans come back in July for WWE too. Is just, they appreciate the good heel work. I think there are a couple people who might get cheered, like your Baileys or your we always point out, or your Sami Zayns, but for the most part, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just saying Roman Reigns is the only really amazingly booked heel in the entire company, in my opinion. Like, I don't like I don't hate Bobby Lashley. I just think he's annoying at this point.
Yeah, and Bobby Lashley is another. I mean, well, I guess let's get into it. I mean, we can bounce between Raw and SmackDown here, but another big thing, Bobby Lashley, that's going on Monday Night Raw, still WWE champion. And we have MVP at the head of that, and apparently purchasing women for him on a weekly basis, which it's kind of funny, but it also, in my eyes, again, I'm not offended or anything. It's just it's disappointing for me, because I get it. I understand the image of what I'm supposed to not like about Bobby, that he has all these pretty women and most guys don't have. Like, I get that, but at the same time, it is a little bit regressive for the women in WWE. I don't know. That's how I felt about it. I understand they're not real performers in the company. They're not actually, the wrestlers, but they're still women, and there are women on the show who are performing at a high level, and yet you're bringing in these essentially, a 2021 version of the Ho Train with the Godfather, and I don't know. It doesn't give me a good feeling about continuing to progress the women forward when you're essentially purchasing these women, these local women, to just be all over Bobby Lashley for, the entirety of the show. Do you feel the same way, or am I overblowing this?
No, you're not overblowing it at all. I mean, talk about regression in WWE for the women as a general topic is something we could probably talk about for 2 hours, or at least I could. Yeah. But just leaving it on this, I'm with you. I think it's so, I don't know. Here's my thing, and this is the way I always try to pose it. Could you imagine, who's your freaking champion? Could you imagine Bianca, but she's a face, I guess. Rhea Ripley. Could you imagine Rhea Ripley coming down with a bunch of really, like, good-looking male strippers? Right. And, like, that being her heel. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you flip it on the other, like, that would never happen. Right. Ever happen. And I think that's the best way to look at it. It's just, like you said, it's just regression. I think it has like John Laurinaitis written all over it. It's like weird. I feel uncomfortable when I'm like watching. I'm like, why am I watching in the VIP lounge? It's like, I don't know they're not good enough actors where it looks like, I don't know. It's like this weird line of, it's just awkward. I almost have secondhand embarrassment.
That's a good point to bring up. They're on top of it. They're terrible actresses, right? Like, they overact everything. They scream for things that no one would scream for. I mean, when Bobby Lashley, I think was it last week, not this past week, but the week before, got attacked in the ring by Drew McIntyre, and they're screaming their faces off like someone just got shot. I'm like, you're in a wrestling ring, right? And these women are screaming and screaming and screaming like someone had just been killed in front of them. And it's just, it is. There are terrible actresses on top of it, and then they're just sexualizing the women. And look, I've said this before, I'm a straight guy, but I'm also married. I'm not blind. At the same time, I still don't want this on my show, because it takes away from what the women have been able to do over the last 5-6 years with the women's revolution. And it's just, it doesn't sit well with me. And you're right, it is embarrassing at times, but I also understand what they're trying to do. I just think that there is a net loss from this particular way of doing it because you're pulling down the women while trying to elevate Bobby Lashley to that heat, like gaining heat level. But to me, it is so overshadowed by you're sexualizing women again for the sake of trying to elevate Bobby Lashley as a heel. To me, it's still a net loss. So any other thoughts on that? I mean, it's just,
no.
Yeah. Like you said, it's a 2-hour topic for sure.
Yeah.
But okay. But Bobby Lashley in general, though, as far as when we look at his storylines, Drew McIntyre is his next opponent as they continue to just overuse Drew McIntyre in the WWE title picture. Do you think that somehow we will have a triple threat for the WWE Championship, or is it just going to be straight up Drew versus Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell again?
I think Kofi Kingston was just a placeholder and something, an attempt at something interesting. Let me put it that way. We got the same match twice in 2 weeks, but a good match nonetheless. But I think you got Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre in a Hell in a Cell. There will be some kind of, shenanigans. He obviously won't win clean. If he wins clean, I'll stand corrected, obviously. And then I'm thinking, SummerSlam is coming up. I don't know what Money in the Bank. You'll probably just have them run it back again at Money in the Bank. But I think SummerSlam comes around, and I have a feeling WWE is going to really make an attempt to make it a big show. I think you've got Brock Lesnar returning, maybe a John Cena. And again, you've got Roman Reigns over there on the other side. So you could pin either of those guys against Roman Reigns, and it's a way more exciting match. But I think whoever is facing Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam is going to be a big name. And hopefully they stop, using Drew McIntyre every single show. I don't know about you, he comes out and now he comes off, and it's obviously the scripting of some sense. I hope at least he comes off like a annoying guy at this point. It's like, okay, you lost, you know what I mean? And now you're just continually trying to jump the line. Why do you get all these opportunities? Because you were a former champion. Well, there's a bunch of other, like Jeff Hardy, then should be getting all these opportunities. And then not to mention, like, it's the little comments. And the only one that's popping to mind, I know there have been more recently, but remember a while ago he came out and he was talking about, like, he put down Uber drivers and stuff like that. And I was like, that's such a, again, we can't curse here, but just like a jerk move, I guess, for your baby face to be doing. Like, I'm supposed to relate to you. This is like, we are so far gone from like a Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's like the blue collar guy. I don't relate to the guy who's like putting down Uber Eats drivers or something. Like, Uber Eats was the best thing in the pandemic. Uber Eats and Uber did a lot more than Drew McIntyre probably did for people during the pandemic. He comes off like a jerk, and I think it's all, booking's fault. WWE doesn't know how to book a babyface. Look at Ricochet and Humberto Carrillo for that. So I don't know how you feel about Drew McIntyre. I'm sour on him. I really am. I think he was great in the beginning. I missed like the way he was at the Rumble. That was great. But it's just overexposure, bad scripting, and the lack of being able to like see real good human qualities in someone that makes it so they can't book a babyface anymore.
And I think that definitely speaks to the larger issue. And I went over this too several times on my show, is just lack of baby faces, a lack of big babyface stars. I mean, there's Drew, and who's the next? Like, it's Drew McIntyre and then everyone else. You talk about it going off a cliff after Drew McIntyre, which is why they don't know where to go. They just keep pounding Drew McIntyre into championship matches, which I will say this, if it was in front of live fans right now, I think people would start to turn on Drew. If this was in front of live fans, I think organically people would be like, okay, like we've had enough. I appreciate the effort you've put in and all the value you've added to the championship, and that, people should be here to chase the belt. Oftentimes it doesn't feel like people are. Drew has done a great job, but he's overstayed his welcome in the title picture by about 8 months. I mean, it has been way, way too long. Not to his own fault. Like, I'm not blaming Drew. This is, I think, creative and Vince and their lack of ability to create big stars. Stars will always be the reason people tune in to sports, I think. Stars are what draw the real money. Stars are what draw the ratings. And when you lose your ability to create stars, heel or face, you start to lose control and you start to just pound that one person who is a star into the same situation, which eventually there's a negative return. And you're starting to see that with Drew, where people are just sick, including myself. And I, like you mentioned though, with the Rumble, where he eliminated Brock Lesnar, and the pop he got was, I mean, it was stone cold like. It was unbelievable, the pop he got that night. And he won the championship, and he was the leader of the pandemic era when it was in the Thunderdome, eerily quiet. Great. I respect the guy, but man, oh man, he is being fed to the wolves right now. And I think that if the fans were there, oh boy, it would be bad. I think that they would really start to boo Drew McIntyre, and they can't afford that right now, and they're not going to turn him heel because they have nowhere to go. When you try to recreate an organic movement of Kofi Mania, you know that they have nowhere else to go. They don't know where else to go. It feels like they are just, they're going to the well and they're pulling up nothing. Like it's just constantly this, guys, we don't know where to go. So, yeah, I think, but this better be the final time. And hopefully it is, because if it's another Drew Bobby main event when it comes to live fans in July, I mean, you're going to turn Drew McIntyre heel. And there's no one for him to face because he's the top baby face on Raw. So,
yeah, I don't think like having to have these guys wrestle or whatever 3 times minimum has to be like normalized. I feel like, and it has become that obviously, but if you're obviously, if you have any other comments on this, happy to circle back. But if you go to the women's division on Raw too, yeah, there's no baby face. Your baby face is Nikki Cross.
Yeah.
I don't know your thoughts on. I'll throw it. If you are all done with Bobby and Drew, I'll throw it to you. I'm like a Charlotte Flair fan, but Rhea Ripley too. They could not have booked this worse for Rhea Ripley. I almost would have rather her not win the championship. This is so bad. So I don't know what your thoughts on the Raw Women's division are, but mine are disappointment.
It's a mess. Now, I'm trying to gather my thoughts because there's a lot on this division that's just a disaster. Asuka holding the Raw Women's Championship, we've been there. We've talked about how disastrous that was and how she was left off TV for like 6 months. I mean, it was just terrible, her run, and there's no excuse for it. And Rhea Ripley is, while she's there and people are talking about the Raw Women's Championship, it doesn't feel right with her as champion. Now, I'm not saying she's not deserving. It's just that how they've presented her has been really bad because I don't know what to feel for her. I haven't been told how to feel. And the idea is it should be WWE's job to tell us how we should feel about a character. We should either want them to succeed or want them to fail. It really is that simple. I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence. It's just there's a protagonist and there's an antagonist or antagonists. It's true for every TV show, every movie. You want to be able to root for somebody and see that the bad guy or gal get their ass whooped. That's it. It's really that simple. And with Rhea Ripley, I don't know what to feel for her because on a weekly basis, she's kind of flip-flopping. She's a tweener. Same with Charlotte. I know that they booked her as a heel, but yet I don't know why I'm supposed to hate her because she's doing a great job on the mic, in the ring. She's changed up her look. She's not doing anything to me that's reprehensible other than telling us to bow down to her. Like, oh, okay, you've been telling us that for years. That doesn't generate heat anymore. That's long gone. So I don't know what to feel for Rhea at all. She feels like she's in between, and I don't want to hear that, well, there's shades of gray in real life. No. I understand that. There's good and bad in everybody. But I don't want to feel indifference for a character you're supposed to tell me I should be emotionally invested in. Emotional investment doesn't come with gray. It doesn't come that way. You need to be one or the other. I don't want to hear the in-between crap. That is lazy creative. Creative should mimic life. No. You're muddying the waters. But Nikki Cross right now is the only true babyface. And she won her beat the clock challenges out of luck and out of avoidance, by the way. She beat it out of avoidance. Rhea Ripley this week tells her that Nikki Cross earned her respect. I'm like, how? How did she earn your respect? By trying to avoid you for 2 minutes? I don't understand how that's supposed to be earning someone's. Is your bar that low for somebody to be able to earn your respect? It made no sense. Nikki, though, is a babyface. She's kind of the lovable underdog right now. But boy, oh boy, this is a mess. Your turn.
I mean, you feel like you covered it all. I guess the only question I'll ask you too, and I'll give you my answers, is who's next? After you run Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair 6 times, you know what I mean? Who do you go to after that? The only guess that I have is you have an NXT call-up come up, obviously. But poor whoever that is who has to come and endure this, right? But like, you know, your baby faces are the ones who run around the ring for 2 minutes and call that a victory and act like they just won the championship title. And then you've got great scripting, like, oh, Charlotte, you know, I'm gonna go to hell. Well, you can go to hell. Like, just really awful stuff. Like, I haven't seen a really bad opening segment like this week. The only bright spot from you is John Morrison, because I'm putting the bar really low, and I think he's got little one-liners that are funny. But yeah, I just, like, who's next? I think Asuka is probably on your next release list.
Yes.
If not asking for it, hopefully. And yeah, I don't know if they need to switch up in the brands. What do they do? But like, realistically, you have 7 women on SmackDown on your active roster, and 2 of them are the women's tag team champions. So that's a little bit tricky. Who's next once Bayley's done with Bianca and Charlotte's done with Rhea, or Rhea's done with Charlotte? Like, where do you go from here? That's the problem, I think, is there's no booking. And like I said, their idea of a babyface is the person who runs around the ring and avoids a match for 2 minutes. Also, a heel versus a heel match, it doesn't work. I can do a babyface versus a babyface match, you know, and then you have the crowd usually split or whatever it is, but no one cares about a heel versus a heel match because you don't like either person, especially when they're so poorly booked like this.
And I was looking as you were talking, I'm looking at the Raw Women's roster right now. The only people that are even relevant that could be considered in the running for a Raw Women's Championship, I mean, Alexa Bliss, whenever she decides to stop sitting on her swing backstage, which is, you know, look, we could get into that next too, as we're on the women here. But Alexa Bliss is one. You have, let's see, we just talked about Nikki Cross. Shayna Baszler, maybe Shayna Baszler, as it looks like Alexa Bliss and Shayna are going to be getting into a program here after, you know, Alexa Bliss is finally doing something. After it's been 2 months since WrestleMania, and I thought immediately she would get into a program, and instead she just sits backstage with a haunted doll and makes, you know, scary voices. And I love Alexa Bliss. I think she's been an unsung hero in 2020 and 2021. But I think her not actually wrestling and getting in a program has damaged her, because people are like, can we just get past the hocus pocus magic crap and actually get you into a program? I think that has hurt her too. And I think as hot as she was with The Fiend, she has cooled off big time, because she's just sitting there every week with raccoon makeup, and we're all supposed to be scared now. It's really, I think, hurt her. But Shayna Baszler is a bright spot, because we're getting her the hell away from Nia Jax and putting Shayna where she freaking belongs, as a single star breaking arms, hopefully. So I guess, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going WWE logic, you probably have Lily versus Shayna Baszler at Hell in a Cell.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Shayna Baszler loses to a doll because, you know, they've had her lose to everybody else, so she will lose to an inanimate object, and then coming off the momentum of that will probably challenge for the title.
Yeah.
I would bet my solid dollar on that's probably what's going to happen next. I know you have talked a lot about liking Alexa Bliss. I am so over spooky crap. Like, no, I'm at my limit.
I'm done. Me. Yep.
Yeah, I honestly think Bray Wyatt's probably on your next release list too. I mean, again, an RKO in 6 minutes, but being lit on fire. We're not even going to go down that.
Don't do it. Oh, you're opening a door. I'm going to pretend you didn't say it. Go ahead.
Yes, but the women's roster, obviously something way more interesting. Nia Jax, maybe, because they seem to really be protecting Nia Jax at Shayna Baszler's expense, which is so sad. I think Shayna Baszler is beyond recall at this point. because I have put hope in Shayna Baszler every single week, and it's literally like it's been a conscious effort to make me not be invested in Shayna Baszler. They have made it almost feels like they're burying her on purpose for some reason. Like this is the true burial. Again, I really believe she's going to lose to a doll. But yeah, I don't know. I have no more inspiration with any. This is my problem with the women's wrestling in the past year is probably taking the biggest hit out of all this. I know obviously there's been a lot of stuff of people released. I think just in general though, the women's wrestling in WWE, besides NXT obviously, has taken the biggest hit. And I think it started all with those tag team titles and pairing everybody together for no reason. I mean, Naomi just lost her tag team partner, and I mean, weren't they just dominating the division? So that's a big loss. Yeah, I got nothing. Naomi, maybe? They tend to just pull someone out of the woodworks, like Nikki Cross, obviously, but then they don't know how to book them. So I don't know. I'm saying we got 6 months of Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley probably, and then maybe somebody from NXT is going to be called up. But I have no faith in any of these women on the roster that no one's credible anymore, you know?
It's because they 50-50 book a lot of the time. I mean, Charlotte wins, then loses. And I understand 2-minute, time limits they're not really a loss.
Well, they did that with Asuka.
Yeah.
They did the match 1 week, and Charlotte lost. Yep. Asuka won. It's like a 20-minute match, and Asuka wins by a roll-up. And then the next week, they did the exact same match, and then Charlotte won, and then Charlotte won a title opportunity.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like this is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know why that they are so fearful of pushing somebody with the hope and the belief that they can achieve what the goal is. Like the 50-50 booking is the worst thing you could do for anyone. I'd rather have someone go on a 20 match losing streak than do 10-10. Because what am I like? I just look at it and go, I don't know, because I don't know if they're going to win or lose. They're not an underdog. They're not a favorite. I don't know what to think. 50-50 booking is the death of a wrestling character. It just is. And so, yeah, you're right. I know it's a small sample size what they did with Charlotte, but Charlotte was blazing hot coming back. I mean, I loved everything that she said about, really just kind of breaking the fourth wall there, doing a kind of a work to shoot promo that I think had a lot of truth in it. And I said basically that she's the opportunity. She did her hair different. She's wearing Cruella de Vil gear now. Her demeanor is different. The way she delivers promo, it's like we got a different Charlotte Flair, an upgraded Charlotte Flair. And I said, this is awesome. The women's division couldn't have needed this more. And they're just now she's kind of trading wins and losses. And you're right. She's probably going to be with Shayna Baszler until the end of time, I would think. And probably Alexa Bliss is the next one, because I for sure see them investing their time into a hocus pocus character rather than a legitimate credentialed MMA style of Shayna Baszler. I mean, we saw what they did with Shayna and Becky Lynch at last year's WrestleMania when Becky just would not let go of that championship, and the fans were ready for it, and we're like, okay, been a good run. It's time for Shayna, and she loses to Shayna Baszler, or she won, and Shayna Baszler loses, and we're like, what the hell? That's too bad that wasn't in front of an audience. So on the other side, you have SmackDown this past week. Liv Morgan on her own, which it was great to see. It's great that she actually got a promo of sorts. But then you have Carmella out there sexualizing herself, by the way. He's talking about sexualizing of the women again, going back to Divas era and further back. I mean, Carmella's entrance has turned into a stripper routine. With her silhouette of dancing, and we're supposed to be looking at how hot she is. I guess that's her gimmick now. I mean, she literally said on the most beautiful woman, I don't care. That doesn't generate heat for me. That just is such, to me, a superficial, lazy way to book a talent like Carmella, who's really good on the mic and is good to very good at in the ring sometimes. And they've taken her and just gone, we're going to make it all about your body. That's all they've done. And I'm like, why? And she loses to Liv Morgan. I thought Liv Morgan would actually, have an upset win and start her on some kind of run. And no, Carmella wins. I'm like, can you make sense of that?
No, yeah, that would be logical. No, I mean, we've been begging for women's storylines that aren't, revolved around the title for a while, because that's how you elevate women, and then and men too. And then whoever wins that feud maybe can go on for the title picture, right? But then, again, 50-50 Carmella because she lost last week, but then she wins this week. And not to mention, you have Liv Morgan, who's lost in the past 2 years her two best friends, both been released. I think the only reason Liv Morgan isn't released because she has a giant internet following because she's awesome.
She is.
And so you book her in a match with the whole. It's so irritating. This was probably my least favorite part of the whole week. The whole premise of the match is. I'm more beautiful than you. Well, you're only a solid 7. Wait till you get my boot in your face and then you'll be really beautiful. It's like, we're really in like 2010 era at this point. It really was.
Yes.
And then she loses. She loses. It couldn't be more of a, you don't matter, stay in line, like vibe that I get. It's just, again, after Bayley, who, again, is another person that I think I could wake up next week and find out she was released after that whole title thing with Bianca Belair. And I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be surprised. Everybody is expendable. And like I said, you've got seven women on the roster, so not including the women's tag team champions. The only other two, or am I making this up? The other two women are I'm missing, my math is wrong because I think that's the six total. So maybe you can help me remember who I'm missing. But you have Natalia and Tamina, who are the tag champions. Mm-hmm. Then you've got Bianca and Bayley, who are in the feud. And then Sasha Banks. And then you have Liv Morgan and Carmella, who are doing whatever they're doing. I guarantee, again, next week we'll probably have the same match and Liv Morgan will win. And who's like, how do you elevate a division? If we go a couple years back, you have an entire pay-per-view dedicated to the women. That's how much the women had going on. And now, with like bangers of matches, by the way. Now you have 7 women on the roster, and it's like only twice since the beginning of the year have they gotten more than 10 minutes of airtime on a 2-hour show. Disappointing. It's just really disappointing. I'm someone who's like, I really love women's wrestling because it's been so cool to see. Yeah, like the women can do what the men do, and it's been such a cool movement to be behind, and there's been a lot of badass women in the division too. And now here we are, and again, everybody's expendable. No, wins and losses don't matter. And the titles don't matter if wins and losses don't matter. And then, like, again, you can't even fantasy book anything. That's when you're at a standstill. Can you fantasy book any women's matches, maybe besides an Alexa Bliss, Black Goo match, Black Goo in a shark cage or something for coming up. Like, there's just nothing to sink your teeth into. And it's really, depressing because everything else on SmackDown's pretty good.
Yeah, everything on SmackDown, like, it is clearly the better show. I mean, it's not even close that SmackDown's a better show. And yes, a lot of it has to do with Roman Reigns being just brilliant. From week to week, I haven't seen an off week from Roman since he turned heel last August. It's nearly been a year, and I'm like, every week is awesome, which is impossible in wrestling. They really haven't missed a step. But as far as the women go, I'm trying to think of a fantasy matchup, even on either roster. And Sasha Banks is MIA. I mean, what would help, I think, is if Sonya Deville got out of her tie and her inexplicable official role. And maybe she's still recovering from what happened with the whole stalker. I mean, we know the story. Maybe she's still mentally trying to get herself back, and whatever it may be. I would say Adam Pearce is fine on his own. I want to see Sonya Deville in a wrestling role. When she did her breakout performance against her best friend, who was it, Mandy Rose, and she was on the mic tearing it up. I'm like, where the hell have you been? And it was awesome. And she was just absolutely destroying Mandy Rose on the mic and physically. And I'm like, this is great. And then, of course, things happen. She disappears. She comes back in an official role. But I think Sonya Deville coming back in a wrestling role would be a big deal. Ember Moon, wherever she's hiding these days, have her come back. She's an actual part of the Blue Brand here. So where is she?
She's NXT.
Is she NXT? She went back to NXT.
She's on SmackDown?
It says she's still part of SmackDown.
Weird. She is probably Raquel Gonzalez's next challenger at Takeover coming up. Well, Takeover in your house.
All right. Well, there's been no explanation as to why they moved her then. Okay. Well, then bring in some NXT talent, or I don't know, do some kind of shakeup. However, if you're going to do a shakeup, then are we just going to do trades, or are we going to do a full draft early? I don't know. What is the answer here? Bringing in new talent, or is it big trades? What is the answer here to freshen up the women's division on both ends?
I'll give you the answer, Matt. It's Sonya Deville versus Adam Pearce, 2 out of 3 falls match.
Oh God, please, yeah, maybe, yeah. You're gonna kill me. I mean, maybe Reginald can be the referee. I mean, is that what you're asking?
Exactly, special guest, or Reginald is in the shark cage above the ring.
Oh God, wasn't Jericho involved in one of those?
Answer. I'm sorry.
I think Jericho was actually involved.
I think
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think I remember that. That was actually not a bad match. I think they bring up women from NXT, and then no one ever goes down to NXT, which would be so beneficial. You think about, like, I know Charlotte Flair's run wasn't world renowned in NXT, but like if you threw like Bayley back down in NXT or Sasha Banks back down in NXT and brought like 3 women up from NXT. Not only, I know you're not an avid NXT watcher just because there's not a lot of time. The only reason I managed to do it is so I can try to give some kind of fair point of view on the whole week. But the like feeling of revitalization in both divisions would be insane. All it takes is a little like switch up for new matchups, and then I don't know, like book somebody to win 3 matches in a row rather than win, lose, win. You know what I mean? I think that's the answer. I don't know if that ever happens, because the problem with that is I don't know if it's less content. I don't know. I really like try to put myself in in the brains of some of these bookers or whatever the decisions are, and I can't understand it. I can't be that hard. You know, I watch a 14-year-old like teenage boy for a living. I feel like he could book Monday Night Raw better than Creative is doing right now. Yeah,
well, unfortunately, I think Vince McMahon's brain froze at 14 years old with his sense of humor. I mean, really, I've always said that where Vince, regardless of whatever you think of him, you know, money mongering, you know, just totally egomaniacal SOB. Regardless of any of that, the guy is the most successful professional wrestling promoter of all time, one of the most successful entertainment promotions of all time. And I've always said that Vince has frozen his sense of humor specifically at 14 years old. I mean, the things that he does that I've heard stories of, like pushing people in a pool, and he finds it so funny. And it's like, dude, if you're like exactly 12, 13, 14, that would be so funny. I don't know. I mean, the humor he presents on his programming sometimes does show that you kind of froze your humor at a young age. But I don't know. The answer probably is partly NXT, but the problem is Vince doesn't view NXT as a legitimate third brand, and that is a very clear message, because it's always people coming up, not going down, with the exceptions of like Finn Balor and Ember Moon, who is just inexplicably going back and forth. Finn Balor is a success story, and I think people can learn from that, because I don't think it's a demotion to go to NXT. I think it's even though some talent would still look at it that way, because WWE management looks at it as the redheaded stepchild of the 3, I still think it would be beneficial for the company as a whole to bring some talent back to NXT, to legitimize it as a third brand, to also elevate that brand, elevate that talent, and show that, yeah, it's not just a one-way street of funneling talent onto the, quote, main roster. It should be a cyclical thing where in drafts you can have guys and gals go between brands. It's not just between Raw and SmackDown. They excluded NXT from the Survivor Series this year. I mean, it's such a clear message of what they and how they view NXT, and it's a shame. And yes, I don't watch it other than just kind of highlights here and there and look at results. But I think I'm smart enough to know that they shouldn't treat NXT so poorly in how they perceive the product to fans, because fans look at it as they present it, and they shouldn't present it to us as, yeah, it's this other wrestling show. You know, look at our Raw and SmackDown. Look at the stars we have. And it's like, no, what makes NXT great is the fact that it doesn't feel like the rest of your entertainment branded wrestling. It actually looks like wrestling. And the storylines are easier to follow. The characters are easier to follow. It's a shorter show. Wow, look, I mean, it's not a magic formula. So, yeah, I'm gonna get ranting here. But anything else on the women's division, which is just on either brand, that is?
No, I'll say real quick. My only guess to the NXT when we're talking about NXT and call-ups is that hopefully, and you mentioned Finn Balor. My guess is Finn Balor is not long away from coming back up to the main roster, and I actually think Vince will probably see more. I don't know if he can get past the injury thing that apparently he has some weird hatred towards people can't get injured, allegedly.
Right, because it's a choice.
If you can get past that, yeah, exactly, it's a choice. But if Finn Balor comes back up to the quote unquote main roster, I actually think Vince McMahon will like him a lot more. Obviously, you'd think we'd want him to go over to like SmackDown, but probably Raw might need him more. I think Finn Balor is probably your next quote unquote call up after the loss to Karrion Kross. And I mean, talk about the revitalization of his character, the Prince, and all of that stuff. But I guess I have to ask you, is there anything that you are thoroughly enjoying outside of Roman Reigns on WWE TV that we could talk about so we could be positive for 5 minutes?
RK Bro.
Knew you were going to say that. I love that. Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, there's not a whole lot to choose from. And I know people are like, oh, everyone's so negative. But here's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend something's great when it's not. I will love the product forever. I will be a fan forever. But when it's bad, it's bad. I mean, I have no ties to WWE. I don't have to say anything. I don't feel like it. So, but yes, let's talk about something positive, at least in my mind. And this may be a negative for you, but it's RK Bro. And it's weird because I was trashing Matt Riddle, and I stand by every word, but I was trashing him for weeks and weeks and weeks from a character perspective. In ring, we all know he's a beast. Character-wise, he was absolutely just unbearable to me. He was. I couldn't stand his character, what they had done with him. And Randy Orton comes along, and it's just like magic. And he balances out Riddle perfectly. Riddle is like that annoying younger brother where Randy Orton has to just put up with. I love the, zip your mouth up and give Randy the key stuff. Those little things, and they play it off well. I hate to say it because I was so anti-Riddle, but when Riddle's with Randy, I'm cool with it because Randy is the perfect foil to Riddle's just outlandish, ridiculous statements because Randy somehow keeps a straight face. He hasn't really changed character. It's nice to see Randy in a story that's not about, the Fiend trying to actually kill him. Because remember, Alexa Bliss told him that the Legend Killer will die at WrestleMania. And, try to light him on fire and scaffolding. I mean, he literally was in fear for his life. So it's nice that Randy's in something that is much different. These two have a chemistry that I don't think they foresaw this working as well as it's working. And it was one of those, well, let's see how it goes and turn the red light on. And they've got chemistry more than I think anybody thought they would. It's working. Do I think that an RKO is eventually coming for Riddle? Probably. But there's also speculation that there could be a turn by Matt Riddle on Orton. So there's also that. And, I know Randy's not a fan of being a babyface, but he can still do it. So I'm enjoying this. I really am. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Randy Orton went from one feud where he was, lighting up the Fiend, and now he's lighting up something else with Matt Riddle. So I love it. I think this is all in credit to Matt Riddle and Randy Orton. I think the performances of what they do, obviously what is scripted is what's getting it over. Because I think Riddle plays, like you said, like the annoying little brother or just like the overexcitable whatever person really well. And then, like you said, Randy Orton's a perfect foil for that. I don't know if you remember Sheamus and Cesaro for a while when they were the Bar, kind of like before they were officially the Bar, or maybe it was towards the later, I forget, or the latter. But Cesaro would get cheered like, deafening cheers, and then Sheamus would get booed. Do you remember they go back and forth about that?
The crowd would go, yes, yep.
I could see something like kind of a dynamic of that. Not necessarily Randy Orton getting booed, but Randy Orton getting cheered, and he's still kind of like, he's able to play a heel. I don't know if this makes sense, but he's able to play heel Randy Orton to an extent, but still get cheered, and maybe you're an occasional boo for when he does something like, RKO, the New Day or something like that. But I think it could be a fun dynamic of like, when's the last time we had like a babyface and a heel and a tag team? At least in WWE. So I like that. I also want to mention, too, Xavier Woods and Matt Riddle, I know that was last week, but that had no right to be that good. I've been singing Xavier Woods' praises for a while. I think he's incredible. Obviously, he's wrestled not just in WWE, but before that too, and he's really an incredible talent, and he's, gotten way more muscular while he was off on injury. And so that match, I'm like, obviously Randy Orton, Xavier Woods was this week. That was, passable, servable. It wasn't nearly as good, but to watch Matt Riddle with the scooter in the ring when Randy Orton hit the Bro Derek on Xavier Woods, like, I smiled. That genuinely was a feel-good moment for me. So I don't know about you. I love the finisher for finisher thing. I don't know, somehow Randy Orton and Matt Riddle are going to figure out how to Bro Derek into an RKO. I could see some crazy stuff like that. But yeah, there's this is a storyline that has potential to go for a good 6 months, something like that, as a team. And then an organic breakup because Randy Orton's Randy Orton, and it makes sense. It's like that simple. Imagine if they applied this logic in other areas, but this is a good storyline that I feel invested in. My only concern is I have no trust at this point. I'm waiting for this to take a hard left turn. And not in a good way. Not in a turn way, someone turns on the other, but just whether it gets to be too much or, eventually the key thing's going to get old. And, when WWE finds something that's funny, they drive it in to the ground and then bury it and then dig it back up and then bury it again.
That's going to be the problem is, like you said, they got something good. But when they go, we got something. Now let's reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. And that's what I'm very concerned about as well. But maybe they won't, and this thing plays out well. They've done really well so far about not rushing this. Randy Orton just didn't immediately go, yeah, cool, man, let's be a team. It's like they're taking baby steps, and I like that. Randy Orton used the Bro Derek this week, where Riddle used the RKO last week. They almost did a pose together where Riddle did his victory pose on his knees in the ring, and Orton almost did his pose where they kind of combined their poses together, and Randy Orton hesitated and walked out. I'm like, okay, they are progressing this nicely where you want to see them as a team, and I don't want either one to turn on the other. To me, that would be one of the worst creative decisions in a while. I mean, there's a lot of them, but this would be a bad one because this kind of chemistry is not easily attainable. You can come up with great stuff on paper all day, and ultimately you put the red light on and things don't work. This, I think, is overachieving anything that they had in mind. They probably thought that, we'll tease them being a team for a week, 2 weeks, and Randy's going to turn on Riddle, and then it's going to be Matt Riddle versus Orton at Hell in a Cell. That's probably what they thought. And I think they've got a lot of legs to go on this, but the danger is, like you said, when they find humor, especially humor, out of all of the elements of human emotion, humor is the worst of their abilities. Because humor is not easy. I mean, humor is probably the hardest thing to do in any genre, especially when wrestling is not meant to be humorous. So I'm very concerned that they're going to just really F this up and just, like you said, pound things into oblivion. And then we're like, okay, this is officially turned stupid, and I don't enjoy anything on Monday Night Raw anymore. So I don't know. But I'm loving this so far. I really am, and I that is absolutely one of the bright spots of the show are the chemistry between Orton and Riddle.
Yeah, it's nice to see him too. I don't know how many of those untold things you've watched and stuff, but I remember watching one a while back about The Undertaker and Randy Orton and how he missed his rehearsal and that famous story and but just about having a match with The Undertaker on TV, I think at one point, and him, Undertaker giving him so much offense, and then Vince being like, what are you doing? And he was like, well, that's what we're supposed to do here, right, is give back. And so it's nice to see Randy Orton doing something along those lines, obviously, to, besides the 6-minute RKO, but to Matt Riddle of giving back. It's nice to see him working with a younger guy. I don't know how much younger Matt Riddle is, but a younger talent at least. I'm curious to see I think they hold off on the pose thing, or at least maybe, the official tag team beginning, if you want to call it that, maybe until they sign up officially for a tag team, because apparently you have to do that, until fans come back.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll get a big pop. I think if they're searching for, I think that'll be the big pop. But I also wonder, I mean, what do they do? Because eventually this is going to get over, and what do you do when a thing gets over? Is usually you end up putting the belt on whoever that is, depending on what it is, obviously. But the tag team titles are on AJ Styles and Omos. Do you see Randy Orton and Matt Riddle going against Omos and AJ Styles? I could see, and we've seen it before a little bit. Again, it might have been more for me, my humor, than yours, but the Matt Riddle Omos dynamic I thought was funny in the little glimpses that we have seen. So that is, I assume, what's going to be the next match, but I assume they don't do something like that until like your SummerSlam or your Money in the Bank.
That to me is a match that should happen. And I think it will happen, and it is SummerSlam worthy. Do I think that WWE is going to keep Riddle and Orton going through SummerSlam? Probably. I mean, SummerSlam is 2 months and change off, August 21st, and it's going to be in Vegas in front of fans. So I think that they will wait until that time to potentially not only for the pose, but also winning the belts. I mean, that is a match I would love to see. And perhaps that even means that once AJ Styles loses the belt, that he goes off on a singles run that I think he deserves to be on. And I know Omos is a big, intimidating guy that can be humorous at times, and he commands presence when he's on the camera. But I think AJ Styles has more to give than being in a tag team, and he's not getting any younger. I would like to see at least one more good run with AJ. And you talk about star power missing. I think him being on a tag team when star power is severely lacking is not the best use of AJ Styles, given what he's done for the company in the past and the matches he's had with John Cena, for God's sakes, the instant classics at SummerSlam a number of years ago. So that's my hope, is that when they drop those belts, as much as I'm fine with AJ and Omos, but to me, star power is key, and you can't have AJ Styles, who's essentially forgotten on Monday Night Raw. It took 4 weeks for creative to find them something to do after WrestleMania. They come back. They're not on the Hulu version. They're kind of in and out. I think that they're not going to be in matches with Jackson Riker and Elias. They're not even a team anymore. So absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think AJ Styles is the kind of guy who you could put him versus Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam and I could buy it. He just has that credibility at this point, so I'm with you. I almost feel like he might be able to lose upwards when they lose the tag team titles, possibly, which is such a oxymoron in itself, but it works from time to time. I mean, that was kind of what we were hoping was going to happen to Big E, I assume. But you mentioned Elias and Jackson Riker, the feud of Monday Night Raw, the nail-biting story that's going on. What were your thoughts, I guess, on Elias just deciding that he, on Memorial Day, he was going to turn on the veteran?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, are we all supposed to just get behind him and salute him because he was an Iraq war veteran? Look, I respect that, and I guess that's the point. Is that how can you hate a veteran who put his life on the line for your freedom in this country, all that kind of thing?
I don't know, racist tweets that might help.
Yeah. Did he put out racist stuff? I didn't know.
You don't remember this? This was the Forgotten Sons, right? So he was one of the three. The other two are released, which is super ironic. But he was the one. He's the reason why they got quote unquote forgotten, because they got called up to the main roster, I think, and then he tweeted out something, and I think he claimed it was for heel heat, which is just ridiculous. And I don't remember what the tweet was. Just some racist crap, your typical stuff, and without getting too much into politics. And then, again, the other two Forgotten Sons who didn't do anything, quote unquote, wrong in that instance are now released, but they kept that guy out of all of them. No. And now they have him in a storyline, in a riveting storyline with Elias. That was definitely one of those situations where Vince McMahon came, ripped up the script, and decided this is what we're doing tonight.
Oh boy. All right. So I'm
not much to talk about. I hate to throw it over to you. I know it's such a hard I feel like we'd be remiss not to mention something that.
Well.
Stupid.
Yeah. Okay. Well, beyond those tweets, and I'm trying to dig them up as you're talking because I'm curious. I somehow missed that completely. But. Putting that aside, for now, I'll pretend that didn't happen, even though that is a factor. I haven't seen it. So just storyline wise, how we're introduced to the fact that, okay, he's a Iraq War veteran. Wonderful. That's cool. Again, racist tweets aside, but I don't understand, like, well, what are we putting Elias and him together for? And breaking up another tag team in a tag team division that, by the way, is about, paper thin. So there goes another tag team again for, that division, although WWE's never focused on tag teams. I don't know. I mean, Jackson Riker, great shape. He's got zero body fat. That's wonderful. He's okay in the ring. Elias has been spinning his wheels for years now, like years. Babyface to heel, the babyface. I mean, he must have taken tips from the Big Show on how many times they can turn. I mean, he's on pace to outpace the Big Show on number of turns. He's had the same gimmick for years. I think it's time for Elias to just, I don't know, scrap the whole wannabe musician, come out and do a bit, yet I know I'm going to get interrupted. Like, can we scrap that? Can we scrap his guitar? I don't know. Elias needs a refresh in a very, very big way. I don't care if they completely blow his character up. I really don't, because he's losing on a weekly basis usually, and now we're supposed to care because Elias is turning on Jackson Riker, and we're supposed to cheer for him because he's a veteran. I really don't care. I mean, I don't care about either character. I just don't. So.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, my point is, so what's the point of the turn? Like, it's just these funny, like, they don't ever have where does this lead is my point. They never have a plan, and it's just a small, like, again, we're talking about Elias and Jackson Riker. I think the world's going to be okay. But like that they broke up. But it's just like, it's a microcosm of the same, like, what's the long-term plan, And I assume there isn't one unless we're getting some Jackson Riker push. I have a feeling one of them is going to be in the Money in the Bank match, if not both of them. And I actually think they're both pretty talented in the ring. They're just, like you said, I don't know, Elias, like you said, has had the same gimmick. I think Elias is somebody who feeds off the audience, obviously, and so without that, he doesn't have much to work with. So I don't know.
Well, look what they did with Tucker turning on Otis. Where they never follow up with that, right? Like,
Tucker got released. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he just get gone. I mean, like, so they've done turns and there's no follow up, right? And same, I mean, obviously with Aleister Black coming in and hitting Big E, and he's gone.
No plan.
Yeah, none. Like, they clearly don't book past what they can see in front of their face. They don't have any long-term anything for anyone. I'm not trying to be negative Nancy here, but it's plainly clear to see that, especially post-Mania, they didn't know what the hell to do with the tag team champions. Sheamus went into oblivion with facing Ricochet for a number of weeks, or facing Humberto Carrillo. I mean, Sheamus, one of the unsung heroes of 2020 in WWE. As much as I don't think he's a top guy, he's certainly a veteran who deserves more than just winning the U.S. title and then just kind of burying him in your back pocket on Monday Night Raw. It's just, there's so many examples of it. But all right, well, that's a larger conversation. Any final thoughts on Jackson Riker and Elias? Do I dare ask?
No.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Bayley and Bayley and Bianca Belair. Bianca came out, and I think she cut a good promo here. I actually, as much as I don't like the stomach churning stuff of anything you can do, look at me and use me to achieve your goals kind of crap, that is just so like, Magic School Bus level of like warmth to me. I don't like that stuff, but I think what she was talking about came from a real place. I think that while it was maybe partly scripted, you could see that when she was speaking, the things that she was trying to talk about in her life of, when you put me down and, you say I look manly with my muscles and I just keep winning championship after championship, that I think came from a real place. And there's such a difference between when they're reading lines in their brain that they just saw backstage and they're just speaking as people. And that's where I thought she excelled this week, was speaking from real life experience about how people perceive her, the limits people put on her, telling her that you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing this. It was good. I really enjoyed her promo this week. Probably the best and most impactful to me that she's had since being on the, quote, main roster. And then, of course, she gets into Bayley, and Bayley's doing her laugh, which I'm kind of split on her laugh. It was stupidly annoying to the point of almost channel changing. But now they've acknowledged it, and Bianca Belair's acknowledged it, and how it's disrespectful. and Bianca continues to get laughed at by Bayley, and so that's like Bayley's gimmick now. Maybe it's growing on me slightly. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, this match between these two, I fully don't expect Bianca to drop the belt probably for several more months. I mean, it's going to be a while before she drops that belt, and honestly, who's next in line, right? Like, who's even on that list that could possibly take out, Bianca Belair? But what did you think this past week with the segment with Bayley via satellite and Bianca Belair's promo?
I'm in agreement with you. I thought this was Bianca Belair's best promo. At least for me too. I thought, like you said, I believed her when what it was scripted or not, whether it was or not. I believed her with what she was saying. I assume it was. But yeah, I believe that came from a real place too. And in regards to Bayley and Bianca, I think the match at WrestleMania Backlash, let me just call it Backlash, kind of suffered from being post-zombie apocalypse, I think. I think they just didn't, it wasn't their best night, which is fine, and everybody's worthy of an off night. Not every match is going to be, 5-star. So I definitely think that they could put on a better performance, and that's kind of the benefit of this, like, minimum 3 match rule that they have in these feuds. I think the only way that I'm going to be super intrigued in all of this, because, like, I'm with you, I don't think Bayley wins the belt, though I think she always could. She's just one of those people, always kind of an AJ Styles for me, always could. Like back when AJ Styles faced Drew McIntyre at that TLC pay-per-view, like they had me a couple spots. So I don't know. The only way that I'm going to necessarily be too intrigued in this is if you tell me, or if we lead to Sasha Banks versus Bayley versus Bianca Belair in a triple threat at SummerSlam. I think that's where I'd like to lead this to. I don't know if that's the case or if that's what's going to happen, but that's a money match. Again, where do you go after that? Lily or Carmella, or, the same stuff that you've already done. Bianca Belair just beat Carmella, so I guess you can't really go there. I don't know. Like we said, NXT call-ups, but I think what they're doing I like. The screen thing wasn't necessarily for me because we're supposed to be in a live audience. Like, we're supposed to believe that it's to be a quote-unquote live audience, and I don't know if we're supposed to believe that, like, the sound effects are going along with that or whatever. But when you do your, spooky stuff and put Bayley on every screen, it kind of detracts from that, and it's the Thunderdome makes it even more Thunderdome-y. So, who knows? I fear that Bayley's going to get cheered if they have a match in front of fans, because people just love Bayley, and I would hate that for Bianca Belair, because I think she's done a great job with what she's got. I hope there's no hair involvement in this next match. But yeah, I mean, all serviceable. I would say solid B+ stuff. Agreed.
Yeah, we've certainly had worse. I mean, compared to everything else going on in the women's division, this is an absolute highlight with these two.
At least there's one baby face and one heel.
Yeah, very clearly defined. I don't need to think about who I want to win, who I want to lose. I think it's amazing that Bianca Belair has taken a gimmick that is the most heel gimmick of all time, saying that you're the EST, you're the best, strongest, the brightest, the fastest. I mean, you are essentially saying that you are the most superior human being ever to exist, and somehow making it endearing. It's really amazing of how she's done it and been able to not get booed for it. And at WrestleMania, with the fans there, she got a very warm reception. People were really, on her side during the match at WrestleMania. Probably you could argue the match she had with Sasha Banks was the best match at WrestleMania. You could make that argument. Outside of the Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan match, you could even make an argument against that. It was that good. So I think she's built up a lot of goodwill with fans. But her gimmick, it's just amazing how really arrogant that gimmick is, and yet she makes it sort of humble. It's really fascinating of how they've done it. And I think, easily translates to a heel turn whenever they do decide to go that road for Bianca Belair, which is probably not going to be till next year. I think that they'll squeeze all the juice out of this babyface title run as long as they can, and there's a lot left. So, but boy, does it translate perfectly into a heel run whenever they decide to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she'd play both parts really well. She's just endearing and she's very lovable, which is a weird thing to say, but she's just very lovable, I think,
Yes, she
as
is.
a person. So it works. I mean, I think the whole WrestleMania thing works so well because Sasha Banks is so piercing with, I talk about a bad laugh. Bailey's is like, I don't know, hearing a newborn baby in comparison to me. I guess maybe that's not a really endearing sound either. You would know better than I would.
Yes.
It's way better than in comparison to Sasha Banks' laugh. So I think, I don't know, I love what Bailey's doing. I think Bailey's throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and you can't, blame her for that. And so yeah, well, obviously we'll see when Sasha Banks comes back, because that's bound to happen eventually. But I think again, this is, like I said, it's serviceable and it's working. I don't have too many complaints. It's not, am I thrilled or excited? No. Have I already seen the match? Yes. So, it's nothing new, I guess is my point. It's nothing really to sink my teeth into. But like I said, it's a women's division match that makes sense. Let me put it that way. So that's how low the bar is set right now.
That's the thing. And we shouldn't have to lower the bar, but we do automatically. For as high as the women's division was, main eventing WrestleMania 35 to where we are now, unfortunately they have regressed quite a bit. If you were to tell me, in 2 years, less than 2 years time, we'd be where we're at, I would have said, nah, they're going to keep ascending. And why they haven't ever had another Evolution pay-per-view is also beyond me. I thought the first Evolution pay-per-view was one of the best pay-per-views of the year, the only Evolution pay-per-view. It was amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, how are we not doing this again? It was awesome. And that's another, again, the women's division,
how would you fill a whole pay-per-view with 7 women on one row? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
think that's the real answer.
But again, you could make it so it doesn't have to be, 10 matches. I mean, just because it's a pay-per-view event, you could still make it a 5-match, maybe top 6-match pay-per-view. You don't have to go all out and make those particular matches last longer and make the programs more intriguing. But I guess they're not at a point right now where they could do it, given the storylines and really the lack of star power and bad booking over the last 6 to 10 months. But with the right booking, creative, and star power, I think it's doable. I think, why not? It's amazing. I mean, that was in what, 2017? 2018?
No, I think it was 2018, and I'm all for it too. And I hate to be negative Nelly again here, but I think about you're negative Nancy. I guess I'm negative Nelly. That was the time around the first Saudi Arabia show, if I'm correct. And I hate to put it this way, I don't think it was let's give the women a pay-per-view of their own. I think it was let's give the women a pay-per-view of their own, because we're about to have another one that they're not allowed to wrestle on for blood money.
That's right. Because the Prince wants to be able to basically create any matchup he wants, and even bring Shawn Michaels out of retirement, which we don't ever talk about. I mean, yeah.
For good reason.
Yeah. God, I mean, please, whatever you do, guys, do not ever watch that match. And it's not only that, you don't want to see a bald Shawn Michaels wrestle on top of it. It just doesn't work. One of the most bizarre and just sad matches in Shawn Michaels' career. So we'll pretend it ended at WrestleMania 26. So, but yeah, that very well could be a lot of politically driven motivations there. And what's interesting, and I'm going to really kind of toe the line here with Saudi Arabia anyway, not United States politics. That's another very dangerous topic. But, it's interesting with Saudi Arabia. They're celebrating all the women that are able to, perform there. I think it was Lacey Evans and Natalya who were the first women ever able to perform in front of a crowd. Basically, in very conservative wearing outfits. I get that. But why are we celebrating something that should have happened, a long ass time ago in just in humanity? I understand that it's great that it happened, but why are we celebrating the fact that it took this long to happen? Right? It's not a good look. And I know that it makes WWE look good, and they were able to convince the government to put on this match. I don't know. That's a whole other topic. People were all excited and cheering and crying, and it is a big day, but you should also kind of reflect and go, it's 2020 or whatever it was in 2019, whenever that match happened. Why is it only happening just now again? And why are the women still being oppressed in that country? Anyway, so that's, again, very dangerous topic to talk about politics here, but that's as far as I'll go with that. So, all right. Kevin Owens, this, again, we're kind of closing things out here. Kevin Owens and Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental Championship. Commander Aziz with his giant Q-tip did not show up, which was good. We got Kevin Owens losing after being attacked by Commander Aziz backstage, and Apollo Crews retains after hitting a Death Valley driver on the ring apron, and Sami Zayn came in and basically picked up the scraps, haluba kicked Kevin Owens, and talked trash. So your thoughts on this?
I'll say that. Oops, sorry.
No, you got to answer that.
I'll say no, don't worry about it. I'll say the attack looked good. Backstage, I'll give them that. Like, I thought, it was different. It's different than a disqualification finish. So it's a start. It's still a cheap way for Apollo Crews to win, which is, this is again, like a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just a small dose of what is a bigger problem in WWE about the distraction finishes and heels. Not like every heel is got to be a cheating heel. Like every heel just can't win a match like Roman Reigns did at Cesaro. And I don't know if it's to protect the baby faces. I don't think Cesaro lost anything in that match. I think that's a perfect example to go back to. So I also don't think that Kevin Owens is like this person that needs to be protected at this point. Like I think you could have just kind of fed Kevin Owens to Apollo Crews and have Apollo Crews beat him clean. No, and again, he did, I guess, in a way, but no backstage attack, no anything. And and then flash his big goofy smile and play his music that yells Apollo and have him be obnoxious as all hell. It doesn't need to be the same formula every time of heavy gets involved and that's why heel wins. I think there's different ways to get heel heat and every now and then it's fine, but when you do it so often, it's just, I don't know, it's so drawn out. But so I like the match, and I also will say that I did like, it's Kevin Owens and Apollo Crews, what's kind of not to like, but I did like that Apollo Crews, I don't know if it's going to be a new finisher of his, hopefully it wasn't, hopefully it was just a Death Valley driver on what's supposedly the hardest part of the ring, that would end a match. I support, especially with the pre-match attack, I supported that, so I liked that it was a finish to a match that wasn't a finisher. I think that doesn't get done enough. So, those are my thoughts on that. I mean, again, Commander Aziz and the Samoan Spike and it's a little all hokey for me, but it's Apollo Crews is, not where he was. Imagine where he was in 6 months from now. Crazy to think about it. So, this mid-card picture looked a lot better before Aleister Black got released. I guess that's what I'll say. But a good match, entertaining.
Yeah. It was. I'm totally fine with it. And I'm okay, too, that the fact that if this is not his finish, that this ended the match. Because everything that's labeled as a finisher doesn't have to be the finish of the match. And, for example, a super kick. I've talked about this many times, too. Why are super kicks transitional moves? Super kicks apparently have the same effect as a clothesline now. They're just transitional moves. Like a DDT is a transitional move. Spiking someone's head into the canvas is a transitional move. It just has evolved into that. Everyone uses it, and it should be a finish. Also, when Kevin Owens relabels his finish to the stunner, the pop-up powerbomb, just because he relabeled it, is suddenly just a false finish. It's interesting, right? Even though the pop-up powerbomb for many years worked for him and it was a finish and he executes it the same way, but now it's not, he doesn't say that's his finish anymore, so apparently it doesn't have the same power and effect.
It's like the flu vaccine, isn't it? It's like the flu vaccine. Every year we got to get a new one because apparently we just become immune to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's same thing there. And I don't know. I have no problem with the fact that it's still part of his arsenal. It should be. But it should eventually, I'm okay with the pop-up powerbomb ending a match because it used to for many years until you said, that's not my finish anymore. And then all of a sudden, everyone who, receives that is like, oh, wait, I get to kick out because that's not his finish anymore. It's just, I don't know. But anyway, the match was fine. Really good, actually. I enjoyed this. Apollo Crews has, reinvented himself overnight, really. Literally overnight by this Nigerian gimmick. And Dabba-Kato, i.e., The Commander Aziz, I think, has done a very good job using the Samoan Spike, also known as now the Nigerian Nail, is doing a very good job. I really don't have any complaints about this. I expect Big E to get involved now that Aleister Black is MIA, or obviously gone. So this certainly is a match that I'm interested in, but also Sami Zayn bringing his face into this and haluba kicking Kevin Owens as if we haven't seen these two fight enough, which is always entertaining, but it's, we've seen it 100 times. So I'm a little bit split on this. But I can't complain. I mean, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I think this is just fine. I'm fine with Apollo Crews, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. I think Sami Zayn and Apollo Crews both have heel heat, and I do want to see Apollo Crews get his ass kicked, and that's the goal. I want to see Kevin Owens hit a stunner and get the victory and be IC champion. So that's how I know they're doing their job. So it's a compliment to really all involved.
So I guess I have to ask you, with all that being said, because you said Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, which I'm with you, but it's always like, I can never complain about that match, at least yet, just
right.
Because they make everybody else on the card look bad. They're so good together, chemistry-wise, and, they hit each other so hard. And so that in a Hell in a Cell would be entertaining as all hell. Again, what does it really mean? I don't know. They've got some kind of story, so you could go with it. So what matches would you put in the Hell in a Cell for this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view as we're wrapping stuff up, obviously? If you're thinking like 2 or 3 Hell in a Cell matches is what they usually do. I know you hate the Hell in a Cell gimmick match, gimmick pay-per-view. I do too. But we're here now. We can change things, sadly. What matches do you think are going to be in the Hell in a Cell?
It's actually kind of easy for me this year. And I know that they always, and they should only do 2, one from Raw, one from SmackDown. So again, beyond the gimmick thing, which is just absolutely ridiculous and watering down the meaning of it, Seth Rollins and Cesaro, I think, is deserving of it. And I also think that Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, to conclude this damn program and get Drew into something beyond the championship picture, are the 2. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm with you too. It's so funny. I feel like Seth Rollins and Cesaro deserves it, and I think if they don't put that in, it's gonna be a mistake. The only other thing I can say is, like, we talked about Jimmy Uso versus Roman Reigns in a Hell in a Cell match, possibly too. So that is where I could see them doing 3. But then again, you want to have 2 years in a row where you don't let. Oh no, last year they had the women had a Hell in a Cell match. I take it back. Maybe I'm thinking of a different pay-per-view. But I don't know. Again, you got no women get to be in this. Again, does any program deserve it? Probably not.
That's the point. Yeah.
But I mean, does any program really deserve it at this point? I don't know about that. So I don't know. I guess I think there's going to be 3. I think you've got the Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, which again is not announced. Obviously, none of these are. But Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns, and then, like you said, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. I could see them not putting Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre in a Hell in a Cell. I feel like if they were going to do it by now, they wouldn't. Don't you think they would have said it?
Well, yeah, they didn't. They just said you got to be careful because it's a very small change in words where they say at Hell in a Cell versus in Hell in a Cell. Like, yeah, it's so easily looked over, but that is the key word, as we all know. So, yeah, I don't think, again, none of these are truly deserving of the cell. But I'm thinking WWE's way of thinking and going, okay, one has to be from Raw, one has to be from SmackDown. But if we do that, does one of them have to be the women, or do we add a third for the women? And you could be right. We could see 3. I hope it's not 3 though. I would sacrifice Drew and Bobby for a women's match. I really would if I was going to choose one. But yeah.
And which women's match do you think?
Boy. I mean, Bianca and Bayley is a good program. I have no problem with that. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte though would be really good together. It's hard because none of them make me go, wow, that's going to be great inside the cell. This is deserving of it. If you're forcing me to make a choice, I would say if WWE likes to keep things balanced and they're going to sacrifice the WWE Championship, then I'd say Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. So they not only get a women's match in there, but also represent Raw. If Seth Rollins and Cesaro are going to represent SmackDown and they get a men's one there. So that maybe that's how I'd set it up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because otherwise, I would have probably said Bianca Belair and Bayley, just because it would be nice to see that side of Bianca Belair. But I think you're right if they were going to keep it balanced. It sounds like we're not going to get a women's match in Hell in a Cell, though. And like you said, and like I said before too, I don't know how deserving it is, anyways.
Which again, I hate saying that because there's a lot of talented women. It's the creative and the stories that are really, I think, very underutilized right now. They're not very fleshed out. I just have very little interest, especially in Rhea Ripley, and it's sad to say. I think she's fine on the main roster. I'm not saying send her back to NXT. It's just, man, oh man, the damage that they've done in such a short amount of time with her, it's scary. It's scary.
It's almost impressive.
Yeah, it's almost like they made an effort. Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
God. All right. Well, guys, I hope we weren't too negative, but we're calling like it is, and hopefully when fans return in about 5 weeks, things should turn around, and maybe the bad taste of all these releases will be out of our mouths, or at least in the distant past, and we can look forward to maybe some massive names coming back, rumors of John Cena versus Roman at SummerSlam, and of course perhaps the sale of WWE, all these things that are just floating out there as conversation points. Maybe they will come true, maybe they won't, but before you go, Mimi, is there any social media you want to share or anything else?
No social media. I always say that you can, if you have any thoughts, you can always email me at mimi.realwwepodcast@gmail.com, and one day it'll happen. I'll get a Twitter. But before I go, I will ask you totally. I think this has something to do with WWE, because you've got Logan Paul, who was in WWE at WrestleMania, and Floyd Mayweather, who had one of the greatest celebrity matches, and then Mauro Ranallo, I can't say his last name or his name at all, the one who used to be the NXT commentator, I think, is commentating. Yep. Do you have any interest in the fight that is going on tonight, the boxing match? I don't know if you heard about that.
It's funny. I only saw that it was happening a few days ago. It popped up on my Facebook. Something you'd be interested in. I mean, I know who Logan Paul is. I used to watch him on Vine when Vine was the app before TikTok was the video app. So I know who Logan Paul was. I know all the bad press he's gotten about the suicide jokes he made in Japan or whatever, and he got destroyed for that. His YouTube channel. Obviously he part in WWE, and do I have any interest in it? Mild. I'm not a boxing fan per se. I mean, again, this is where star power draws money. It's relevant in any sport you can possibly think of: movies, TV shows, stars. So that's why people are interested in this. But if you're gonna ask me who I think wins, probably Floyd. I think Floyd wins because of speed, not power. That's what has gotten Floyd Mayweather to where he is now, is how freaking fast this dude is with his hands. And I think that's going to be the game changer and probably knock out Logan Paul. That's my guess.
Oh, you think he's going to? I don't think he's going to not. I think it's going to be a boring fight that goes to 8 rounds. That's my prediction, because I don't know. You got to watch out for a guy who's like 20 pounds your weight. I don't know much about boxing either, but I figured I would ask about it. It's somewhat WWE correlated, right? With a lot of current people. But again, like you said, star power, crazy. Like how easy. Like I don't give a crap about boxing, but you talk about these two people that I don't really know either, but I'm interested in watching them fight.
Well, if Floyd's listening, right? Like maybe you should just put the stunner in your arsenal. It worked at WrestleMania.
What I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. That's how I'm calling the end. I'm DraftKings. I'm gonna bet that it ends in a stunner.
Ends with a stunner. Oh my God! I would love to know the betting odds of that. I mean, you'd be an overnight millionaire if you were the only one to bid on that. Oh my gosh! So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Mimi. It's great to catch up with you. Of course, everybody listening knows that she hosts 2 shows a week, doing the highs and lows, which just dropped today, and the AEW review show. And you just did one last week with Ashley that was about 2 hours or so, covering the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. And we'll be in touch very soon, I'm sure. So thanks again for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It sounds like a lot of exciting stuff in the works.
Absolutely.
Vaguely.
we shall see. Probably some good and bad, and hopefully no more releases. So.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. You have a good night, Mimi. Thanks so much. Bye.